When you ask somebody why they choose their career, usually they say things like, my father did it, or it was a childhood dream, or it pays the bills. And most people would nod and leave it at that. I, however, am not like these simple peasants, for when people ask me why I choose my career, I get to tell them the glorious answer of, a video game. A video game made me choose my career.
Bruh.
So, what video game could possibly shape my life so profoundly that it redirects the entire course of my career? Could it be Minecraft, the foundation of our childhoods, the pinnacle of creativity, the place where imagination first learned to breathe? Could it be Worldbox, a chaotic world where power is fragile, life is fleeting, and tiny pixel people have better survival instincts than we do? Or perhaps Valheim, a quiet, determined journey of survival, of facing impossible foes, and learning to trust your comrades as you push toward a shared goal? Nope, it's Limbus Company, and I am summoning the entire Project Moon hive mind to witness me absolutely glaze the hell out of this game. For those of you who have not had the privilege of becoming one with the Project Moon hive mind, let me explain to you what this little game made in the backstreets of South Korea is. Limbus Company was made by the company Project Moon. Its gameplay is either its rich, complex, and onion-layered story, or P plus enter. The story is easy to follow along with, starring you as Dante, an amnesiac buffoon who got sucked into a company where nobody liked you. You had 12 employees who die repeatedly, and it is your job to pull them out of Inferno. Because the Dante's Inferno, okay. And you get to feel the exact pain of their punishment as they did. Man, what an empath you are, Dante. Each canto is also related to each employee, and you get to go through their story and their trauma like it's a group project. Nobody's secrets are hidden from your comrades. It is our trauma now. I'll explain my thoughts more on their stories later. The actual gameplay is the essence of uncontrollable gambling. Yes, there is more gambling in the gameplay than their actual gacha system. Limbus Company's combat is... complex, in a nice term. It was only recently that they added a decent tutorial for the game. We OGs know the horrors of the old one. We had to learn how it worked for ourselves, or from the person that dragged you into this cult. Many videos explain the combat system of Limbus Company, so I will not go too in-depth to it in this video. Instead, I will explain what aspects of combat are significant to the story of each sinner. These are the 7 sins every skill is based on: wrath, lust, sloth, gluttony, gloom, pride, and envy. We don't talk about the middle child greed. He got left at home during Christmas.
Give this to Kevin.
Give this to Kevin.
Give this to Kevin.
Give this to Kevin. Kevin.
Give this to Kevin. Give this to Kevin.
Give this to Kevin. Give this to Kevin.
Give this to Kevin.
Give this to Kevin. Here you go, Kevin. Kevin's not here.
What?
Each sinner will have 3 skills, all color-coded to these sins. The sins for each of their combat skills are significant because they are chosen to represent the sinner's story and trauma. Let's take Otis for example. Otis is based on The Odyssey, a book about the aftermath of the Trojan War that I totally don't have a massive hyperfixation on, that has lasted for 2 years, which at this point is no longer an interest inspired by Epic the Musical, but is now my speciality and expertise on my English studies, assuming that Otis is Odysseus from the books, the Iliad and the Odyssey, though some evidence suggests that Otis could be Penelope, but that's diving too deep into my theories. We can see that her skills match up with her personality. Her first skill is Sloth. Sloth in Limbus Company is the unwillingness to change rather than just laziness, or in Hollohein's terms,
Stones are sturdy, but that's all there is to them. They are directionless and unmoving, completely surrendered to inertia. They are trapped in their current, locked in the existence until someone else comes along to roll them away. Truly, there is no better symbol for sloth than them.
not only do we see Sloth show up in Otis's behavior throughout the story, especially her boot-licking and suck-up to Dante, but we also see the same behavior in Odysseus within the Odyssey. Odysseus is unwilling to change his course of action. He has one goal: to get back to his wife.
I miss my wife, Tails. I miss her a lot. I'll be back.
Next is pride. Oh boy, does Otis have some pride. She sees everyone as inferior to herself, and she is the only one who is capable of great success amongst the group. Odysseus also has pride in the Odyssey. He took many men to war and lost very few, until his journey back. And he is the king of Ithaca. Of course he would have some pride in what he does. It's what got him into messes, and it's what gets him out of messes. We also see that Otis's ego is pride, which is probably a main indicator that this is her main sin. The egos, or equivalent to a special/ultimate skill to you uncultured swines, also carry significance to the sinner's story, though we don't know Otis's quite yet. Her canto has not come out. Lastly, we have the Sin Gloom. We do not see much sadness from Otis in the story as of now. However, we can pull some context clues from her source material. Odysseus loses all of his men and is the only survivor in his 10-year journey home. He wept a lot in the book. He was very sorrowful about the situations that he had to endure. He was very gloomful, and I cannot wait to see Otis break like that. There are so many details in the combat that relate to the sinner's story itself, and I think that's a unique touch that Limbus Company has. The combat showcases the characters as much as the story does. Man, what a game. It's so detail-oriented. If you have not checked out this story, please go play through Canto 3. It's free on Steam and mobile. Speaking of stories, if I were a sinner, I'd probably have lust, envy, and gloom as my sins. The obsession is a little bit too real, guys. Let me tell you the story on how I came to be obsessed with this game. I was a wee little lad that had too many plane rides for me to have any sanity left. Back then, riding took me by the throat and declared itself as my hobby for life. Thus is how we got these. You should go buy my books, please. But I want to discard all of that and become a marine biologist and swim with the dolphins into the depths of the ocean. Throughout school, it was my dream. I was going to be the best dolphin whisperer alive. And then college biology hit me like a truck and burned all my dreams in a dumpster fire. So, in my junior year of high school, I set out to talk with my advisor to change my career path as soon as possible. Hey, I don't want to be a marine biologist anymore. What do you want to be then? I don't know. Stop wasting my time. I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life, and I only had an hour to pick a different career. So I scrambled through all of what I liked to do to try and make a career out of it. Hold your horses, Project Moon fans. I'm getting to the part where you all are relevant. Writing. I knew it clung to me like how gum stuck to my hair at 2 a.m. At first, I considered psychology, but I didn't like the idea of resisting the urge to say skill issue to a gal's hamster getting naturally selected by a vacuum cleaner. So, putting together my love for writing and spawn camping on children, helping others, I got the perfect degree for me, teaching English to high schoolers. Only slight problem, literature classes are boring as I could not for the life of me stay awake in any college English class. I did not realize I signed up to have Charlie Brown's teacher as my instructor for every single class. The stories were dumb. Who likes reading anyway? Where's my win rate college button? I was about to cower back to my advisor and change my degree plan until a friend decided to drag me into a cult I would never escape. Trummy!
Well, hello there.
Would you mind telling the audience how you dragged me into a cult?
A cult? What's this about a cult? Zell, what the hell did you—
Project Moon.
Oh, right. Well, in that case, you should have started with that. But in that case, young viewers, you see, there was once a time about almost 3 years ago when I was in a call with Zell and some friends of ours, and I was streaming to them some Limbus Companies. She asked a bit about the game, and I thusly gave her a simple rundown and suggested for her to try it. She did not. She didn't do it yet, but unknowingly, Zell was already in my trap. You see, I was also running something of a Limbus Company TTRPG, and we were looking for more players.
Yes, this is the same campaign where I have my Sinner, Jekyll, and Hyde. I talk about them a lot in my streams and shorts. There's a link to their story on AO3 in my bio. It hasn't been updated in ages. I'm getting there, I swear. Anyway, continue, Dremmy.
Because I thought that Zell was a pretty radical and cool person, I offered for her to join, and unwittingly she accepted. Little did she know, that was the final snare. She got invested into the story, and went to play the real Limbus, and I remember exactly when it clicked that she was traumatized, when she cursed out about that snap. Now my evil self has ensnared Zell in an unbreakable bond, led astray by my roseate desire. Limbus has swallowed you whole, Zell.
Thank you, Dremmy, for the rundown and the undeniable invitation to the cult. When YouTubers tell you that the marketing team for Limbus Company is about as good as a wet blanket in the snow, they are not lying. I have never heard of this game in my life until word of mouth reached me. I low-key was going to quit the game after what that disgraced Apple did to Yuri. I was traumatized. But I persevered, and after making it through the terrible excuse of a second canto, I finally made it to Canto 3.
Why are you running? Why are you running?
And I had successfully been dragged into the cult. And when I tell you, this game changed my life. The Project Moon brain rot is truly a hive mind. And I have fallen right into their traps. I was enticed by the tales and gave in to its cultist ways. You might be wondering, how does this affect my career? I am so glad you asked.
God forbid you're a literature teacher and have a Limbus fan in your classroom.
So yeah, that was me. I was that student. I'm the one that spreads the word of Limbus Company to all the people in my college classes. There I was, in English class, half asleep and reconsidering marine biology again until my professor said the word Dante. And suddenly, my brain lit up like a Gasha banner. And once the brain rot took hold, something weird started to happen in my classes. Every time a professor said a name that existed in Limbus Company, my head snapped around like a feral raccoon hearing the Pringle can open. My classmates thought I was possessed. My attention span was instantly rehooked, and I suddenly was paying attention to the details of the story and how they lined up with the ones I had seen in this little indie game. Not only that, but some of the required material I had to read was the source material for some of the sinners. This made me invested not only in the game more, but also in what I was actively learning in class. Reading Dante's Inferno, Don Quixote, Metamorphosis, The Odyssey, and The Stranger made me have a greater appreciation for every character, as well as an appreciation for the stories themselves, because Project Moon retold them so well. It wasn't the literature that was boring. It never was. I just didn't care in class because my teachers didn't make it engaging. College never taught these stories and their deep, profound lessons to me the way that Project Moon did, through chaos, trauma, and very, very questionable life choices. They didn't give me faces to love, interactions to witness, or themes that actually mattered to my life and related to me. But in the video game, I could see the characters. I could relate to them. I could watch them actively make choices instead of hearing about those choices in a monotone lecture. Classics are notorious for having wildly different writing styles. Some gripping, some not. But Limbus made the characters feel like people again. People I could connect with. And that was the key to my engagement that my college professors were missing. Limbus Company did something that my college professors couldn't. It made me care about symbolism. Suddenly I was like, oh, the apple isn't just an apple to Gregor, it's emotional damage with a stem. These weren't just some dusty old names in a textbook. They were characters I knew, characters I fought with, characters whose trauma I had personally witnessed while mashing P enter like a trained lab rat, and it changed everything. I cared about the stories, the themes, the lessons, and not just for me and my own learning, but for what they could teach other people too. I wanted to bring that same spark, that same chaotic enthusiasm into a classroom full of students who might just be one Dante away from waking up just like I did. Limbus Company didn't just make me enjoy literature again, but it made me want to share it. And I would love to share all of my insights on Limbus Company and their sinners compared to their source material with you all, but I can't tell you or my peers that. It's not as simple as a retelling of the classics that we teach in English class. Because the moment that somebody asks, oh, what's the video game based upon? I have to launch into an entire speech on how not every story is a faithful retelling. Even if it resembles the source material a little bit, it has major differences. If it resembles the source material at all. Sometimes knowing the original text actually makes the canto harder to enjoy. Because I'm sitting here like, so we're doing the books were actually better than the movie thing again. But that kind of analysis, after writing it for this script, I decided was way too long for this video, so I will create a full breakdown in a different video. Make sure to subscribe for that. What I can tell you is that Project Moon made me like classes that I hated, and strengthened ones that I already loved. So I'm still upset that Project Moon retold Don Quixote's story so badly compared to the source that they took away the entire meaning of the book, that Don Quixote was a nobody and would always be a nobody, and turned him into somebody so powerful and important that it defeats the purpose of what the original book was trying to make. Limbus Company has its strengths and weaknesses, just like any other game. It has a great story, like many other games. But because it specifically ties in characters from classical literature into its story, the names of the sinners had become buzzwords in my brain so much that now I know all of their source material stories and can't help but pay attention in class when I hear their names. It means that sometimes the greatest lessons of humanity are found in the dusty textbook or in a lecture hall that can be translated into something entertaining and captivating, retold in a unexpected way, like this Korean gacha game. I would not have felt like I had purpose in teaching the classics until I played this game, until I put the faces to the names of the characters, until I saw the themes with the visuals, or until I saw how characters with different themes interacted with each other and why their story mattered. This game really changed my perspective on history, literature, and why I was going to be teaching in the first place, to show students the love of stories and the impact it can have on our lives. This game is what made me realize that teaching English isn't about memorizing dates and literary terms. It's about understanding the core, timeless human stories that Project Moon is now adapting for a new generation. Tell me, if you were a fellow victim of the Project Moon Hivebind, let me know in the comments which Sinner's Canto are you most excited for. How many Limbus reviews have you watched? And what number of reviews is this video? And for those of you who haven't played, seriously, go play through Canto 3. It's free, it's a masterpiece, and your career might not change because of it, as mine did, but I guarantee your mental state and view on humanity will. And you'll hate them when Ryoshu loses another Clash of Li Hang. Girl, you're a failure! Thank you for watching, and subscribe if you haven't already for more videos like this. And because you stuck to the end of the video, I pray you always win your clashes and pull the unit you want for your next small purchase. Until next time, filthy casuals, goodbye!